This is the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla in the 3D Security and Training Academy studios.
I think it's very important that we find candidates and elect them who would be willing to call for a convention of states if need be, because that is the tool that the people have to rein in government, is a convention of states.
Standing up to pressure when times get tough. Sarah Palin is known for that, and recently, another Mama Grizzly showed her teeth when the chips were down, standing up for all of us in Arkansas and standing up for Convention of States. We're so pleased to have State Representative Michelle Gray of Arkansas on the program today. Governor Palin's son-in-law-to-be offers his expertise on how to deal with ISIS. A brand new installment of Liberty and Legacy with Tamara Colbert is on the way from Texas. And just ahead, our latest edition of Steel Resolve with Sarah Steelman in Missouri. Welcome to the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. The Palin Update is sponsored by 3D Security and Training Academy. Learn more at 3dsta.com. In March, Convention of States project came up for a vote in Arkansas. Sarah Palin and Bristol Palin encouraged those in the natural state to vote, not just give a present or non-vote. And the Palin women encouraged those elected officials to vote yes. Well, then the drama unfolded. The resolution failed to get enough votes during the first consideration, but after listening to the grassroots, Representative Michelle Gray changed her vote and decided to stand with the people of Arkansas. She, along with Representatives Bob Ballinger and David Meeks, got the motion reconsidered and then approved by the House 52-33. Sarah Palin said, "This is great news for the Convention of States project, but even better news for America. Thank all of you for contacting your representatives at just the right time. Way to go, Arkansas. Maybe now we can forgive you for giving us the Clintons." Now we bring in Michelle Gray to the Palin Update. Representative Gray, welcome to Mama Grizzly Radio.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's wonderful to have you, and thank you for what you did recently, last month in that resolution vote, Convention of States. Let's talk a little bit about that, how things went down, because it wasn't your regular vote. It went one way, and then you got to vote again. What changed your mind?
Well, essentially, Representative Ballinger came to me and talked to me quite a bit about it. I think I had the same fears that a lot of other people had, and then it could be a runaway convention. There was no certain outcome. But he assured me that any powers not granted to the federal government, were given to the states, and that we could control this convention. And we were limiting it to three certain aspects, and he essentially just made me realize that without this, we've got a runaway government right now, and this was essentially our chance to try and rein the government in. So he did a great job. I talked to a lot of different people and decided that I would make the motion for reconsideration.
Well, Governor Palin and Bristol Palin as well, they've called you courageous for this move, and I could see why, because, there's a lot of pressure, not only in Washington, but also in state houses across the country, and people try to play ball or are pressured into voting a certain way, and here, you went and said, hey, look, I need to look at this again, and you took everything into consideration. I think that's what people want, or at least used to get from a public servant.
Oh, yes, and that's one thing I've always said, and this one actually I think was the only vote that we ended up reconsidering, that I did change my mind on and vote a different way. But I always try and look at things objectively from both sides, just to make sure that I make the best decision possible. And I'm sure that every vote I cast might not have been the best vote, but at the time, with the amount of research and time I had to do it, I felt like it was the best vote.
Yeah, well, there's certainly a difference of looking at all the information and making an educated change, as opposed to the Obama method, where you know you're safe and elected twice, and then you say you're enlightened on gay marriage when really you were for it all along. So,
oh yeah,
we know how that game works. Now, what did you think of this national spotlight that was put on Arkansas through this, largely from Governor Palin, also Governor Jindal and Bristol Palin, Mark Levin? A lot of people focusing now on Convention of States. One of our contributors, Tamara Colbert, is the Texas director, and really people had all eyes on Arkansas, and you came through. What was that like? Hearing from people outside of the state rooting you on?
Well, it was amazing, and we were so involved in this process and working on this. after it had failed the first time and then bringing it back up. And I had been inundated with emails and phone calls, both sides. And there was a group, I believe it was a national gun rights group, who actually had all the residents in my district calling me saying that I was taking away their Second Amendment rights, which was, totally absurd. But we were so focused on that, I guess I didn't realize the gravity of what we were doing until after. And I think it was amazing. I think it was great to see Arkansas in the spotlight doing something like this, stepping out on a limb, trying to take control of a situation. So I think it was great for Arkansas.
And now that you've all supported Convention of States project, what would you say to someone who doesn't know much about it now that you've really been fully informed on it? Why is Convention of States a good thing?
I think it's a good thing, just like Representative Ballinger and I discussed, that the federal government is kind of out of control right now, and we need to do something to rein it in. And just like Representative Ballinger's, he had limited his, along with a lot of other states, to 3 specific things, and that was imposing fiscal restraints, or a balanced budget, limiting the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and then also limiting the terms of office for members of Congress and its officials. So I would encourage them to look into it and to get all the facts, and the biggest thing is the scare tactics. Don't let outside groups try and scare you into thinking that this is something that it's not. It can be controlled, and I think it's needed to try and rein our federal government in.
Now, for people who may not know a lot about you, you're fairly new to politics. Let's talk about when you ran and when you won, and why did you get involved? Why did you want to be in the House?
It's an interesting story. I've been fairly involved in my local county and community for about 6 years, and as a Republican, and our filing deadline was February 28th and of 2000 and I have to get this straight, 14, and a lady who was running for state senator actually called me and asked me to run. And I was flattered, thought there's no way, I can't do this. I don't have the personality or the time. But the more I thought about it, I almost felt like I was called to do it. And I ran my campaign. I beat a 2-term incumbent, a Democrat. And I ran my campaign on the premise that if I can't win on merit alone without being negative, then I don't want to be down there. And so that's what we did, is we just kept a real positive campaign, talked about a lot of the things that we wanted to change, how to try and bring conservative roots back to Arkansas. So that's how I won. I won by 8 percentage points, 54-46. So that was pretty amazing. And we actually started our first day in session this year on January the 12th.
And already making big moves. And, I love to hear the hesitation in your voice, because that's what we need, is the reluctant leader. I mean, George Washington, he said, I don't want to do this. And they went after him and said, General, we need you to do this. A lot of people feel that way about Governor Palin. It's the reluctancy, because you are a quote-unquote normal family person who has a life outside of this, who takes other things into consideration. But then other people say, hey, we need you here. And that reluctant leadership, I think, sometimes is the best. I was at James Madison's house recently, and talking about how these guys, even when they were president, they'd just go back to their life, and that was it. I mean, you're not supposed to be there for 100 years. Back then, all you got was free postage stamps and I think a subscription to a newspaper of your choice. But other than that, it was back to the farm or wherever you're from. So, I think that people like that, and they see someone who is their neighbor, someone who is their friend, someone that they can recognize from school and church and everywhere else. And I think that resonates. Now, what were your feelings of Governor Palin, when she ran for vice president, and just overall? I know you're a huge gun rights person, so I would assume that would go hand in hand with a respect and an admiration for the governor.
Oh, yes, we love Governor Palin. Actually, my husband, he said, make sure you mention this, but we went down, it was around my husband's birthday, and I'm thinking it was about 6 years ago, but we went down and actually met Governor Palin and had our picture taken with her. We just have a lot of respect for her and for what she does, and the fight that she's willing to take on. She's not scared of anything, her viewpoints and our viewpoints are a lot alike. Our stances are the same on a lot of issues. So I have a lot of respect for her, and she's a mom, she's a wife, she is she's me. I can see myself in her a lot.
Well, and I think that's why she highlighted what you did, and as did Bristol, because, you know, they recognize here's another woman in a similar background who's not afraid to stand up to the big boys and things of that nature. So, yeah, it's really encouraging. You're doing a lot of other things in Arkansas. It's not just a convention of states, Common Core, something that's out there that a lot of people are dealing with across the country right now. What's the situation in Arkansas when it comes to Common Core, and where do you stand there?
Okay. On Common Core, I'm not a Common Core fan at all. The Governor Asa Hutchinson, he has assigned a task force with 16 members to essentially look at Common Core in Arkansas and see what direction we need to go in the future. We did do away with the park testing this year. We legislated that. So this year will be the only year that they actually get to do that. And this task force is going to look at alternative methods in the future for testing. So I hope to see a transition away from the Common Core standards. I don't necessarily think that federal standards to some degree they're a good thing, but they need to be age appropriate and realistic. So I hope to see a lot come out of this task force.
You know, another similarity you have with Governor Palin, I understand you won a pretty big basketball game recently.
That was a lot of fun. The House played the Senate, and I don't even remember. I think we won by 2 points, and the governor was on the Senate team. We told him next year he's going to have to pick the right team, but he was on the Senate team, and we tied at the end of regulation, and he said, you know, by executive order, I call it a tie, and we were all screaming, no, you know, we hate to tell you we are vetoing you. You know how legislators can be very competitive, and so we made him play an overtime game just so we had a winner. Fortunate to be on the right side of that.
See that, Governor Palin, a high school state basketball champion, and Michelle Gray beating the state senators, so you got to love it. Hey, I got to let you in on this just purely by coincidence. I mean, there was some thought to it and reasoning I won't go into, but my kid's Little League season starting. My son is first year at T-ball, and my daughter's moving up now to softball. I'm coaching both, so no, I will not be sleeping. But I got to tell you this, we're in the Northeast, yet our teams. My daughter is the Arkansas Razorbacks.
Oh, my God.
And my son is the Northwest Arkansas Naturals.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we are all natural state when it comes to Little League this year, and I knew you'd get a kick out of that.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
So a little Arkansas representation for you, and you certainly representing the people very well in your first term in the State House in Arkansas. Michelle Gray, keep up the fight. We appreciate it, and kudos on what you did, and we'll certainly be watching you as you move along, and good luck to your Cardinals this year.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I enjoyed my time.
For more on Convention of States, go to conventionofstates.com, and for more on Michelle Gray, visit arkansashouse.org.